Hello there. How's everybody doing? I'm just going to do a sound check actually before we start. Okay, so just check that everything, looks pretty good at my end. Let me know if otherwise. And so I really wanted to offer what I would call slightly lazy yoga class based on a bit of feedback that people are giving us around the fact that they want the classes to be short. They're not feeling like doing that much, though they're doing the gentler stuff. And just also to acknowledge the fact that, look, let's not expect our practice to look like a studio-based practice, myself and your practice, that we're all going to do probably less at home than what we might otherwise prefer to do. And certainly being realistic about how you're feeling if you're not as motivated just because you're having one of those days, but at the same time, at the back of your mind, you're aware that actually doing something is going to make you feel a bit better. But we just approach this kind of, I like to approach this kind of mood with the idea that we're just doing something, just start somewhere and see what happens. And so this is just a little bit of inspiration around what you could do. And for the most part, we're going to be on the mat. You could be wearing normal clothes or something comfortable. It doesn't have to be a strict yoga setup for yourself. And certainly you might even want to be just doing this in your pajamas. You could even do some of these postures sat on your bed. If you weren't even out of bed yet, that's fine. No judgment, okay? You might like a blanket if you're on the hard floor, just for a bit of padding. But certainly you can take whatever you need for this practice. So taking a comfortable seat, we'll start sitting, you could even be in a chair actually for this first part. Sit tall, lift up through the spine. Allow the shoulders to drop down, and then either resting the hands on the legs so the shoulders and elbows hug in towards the side body, or you might want to bring the palms into the lap, depending on how you're sitting. Try to elongate the spine, and this is a really simple method of helping you to sort of physically and mentally wake up or give yourself a little bit of oomph to get your motivation without too much effort. And closing the eyes, perhaps at least softening the gaze or relaxing the face as well if you can. So relax around your mouth and jaw, and then relaxing around your shoulders, and then steadying your awareness into your breath. And as you sit for a few moments of preparation, tapping into why you dragged yourself out or onto your mat. For some practice today, or maybe it's also that acknowledgement that you're feeling the same as pretty much everybody else and myself at some point in this strange journey that we're all navigating together. And see if you can make the breaths full and long. So you're slowing down your breath, drawing the breath down. And look, this might be your practice, is to take a few minutes to sit and to make the breath bigger, make the breath a little bit more focused on opening up the chest. And you might want to do this down if you're sitting down at the beach, or if you've got some space outside in your garden. You could do this in the fresh air. And finding a slight sense of invigoration as you're doing this. And this might be enough. So full breaths in through the nose. Slowly draw the air down into the lower lungs. And full breaths out through the nose, allowing the breath to leave the body slowly. We're going to stay sitting in this position and stay with that steady breath, but reaching the hands either side, so sort of reaching out to the side of your hips, but slightly away from the body to extend the arms gently. We're going to take the left ear to the left shoulder, keep your right shoulder down, and reach out through your right fingertips. Really simply, neck stretches, really good place to start if we're feeling a little bit sedentary or tight. And then over to the second side, right ear, right shoulder, left shoulder down. And then gently bring the head to center, gently open your eyes. And we're going to come into child pose, really relaxed version of child pose. So somewhere towards the back of your mat, just so you have space forward in front. I'm sitting back on the heels, and you can have the knees open if you feel it's useful to do so. Folding upper body down, and you can take the arms however you like. It's helpful when you're feeling a bit lazy to get the head on the floor or on the mat. On something. It doesn't have to be the mat. So if you can't get to the you could stack up hands, which is an easy way to do this if you don't have props, blocks and things. If you have a blanket, you could use a blanket too. Right, lay down your arms and get the head down on something. You can relax the neck. Just see how the body feels, and just add a little bit of a swaying motion. So the aim of the game here is just to sort of trick into doing some movement without actually doing effort to get to it. And so a simple start and see, just feel just warming a little bit more, maybe light spots around the hips. Clear that. Feel a little bit sedentary. I guess just circle of feel we're not moving, and that's why we're not moving. So we put a little, but this is a nice place to start. Okay, so you could use a blanket under your knees if you need a bit of padding here. And we're going to keep the form really simple. So keep the legs the same. Instead of having the feet hip width, actually keeping the big toes together and the knees slightly apart. So breathing in here. And as you breathe out, move back into child pose. So we're going to go back and forth a few times. So inhale as you come up and forward. And exhale as you move back. Inhale as you come forward. As you move the hips back, keep the hands pressing to keep the arms outstretched, beginning to warm into the shoulders as well as the hips. Breathe out on the way back. Breathe in on the way forward. Let's do 2 more of these. Steady breaths in through the nose and out through the nose. And then bringing yourself back up as you breathe in. Coming to tabletop with the knees and feet hip width apart. The hands are shoulder width. So check here that your wrists are under your shoulders. And I've got big baggy trousers on, but just check that your knees are under your hips. And we are going to take a downward dog, which is a little bit more of a challenging posture physically, but see if it helps to pep you up a little bit. So breathe in, tuck the toes, and as you're breathing out, lift the knees, hover the knees off the floor and pressing the chest back towards the thighs. So lifting the hips up. And you don't have to straighten the legs here. What you might like to check in with is the shoulders away from the ears, widening across the back of the chest and releasing the neck. So maybe you have a little bit of a head wriggle or movement to release the neck. And then once you've released, as if you can release around the neck, you can let the head hang heavy and get a stretch with the weight of the skull. And see how downward dog feels. Maybe it's not as bad as you anticipated. Let's breathe in as you lower the knees down. Take a rest in terms of take a little bit of weight out the hands. Maybe just tweak the position. We will repeat downward dog again. So this is probably the height. Oh, no, not quite. I was going to say this is the height of your effort. There is another slightly more effort posture, actually. Let's breathe in again. Tuck the toes, hover the knees, breathe out, pressing the chest back. And this time, alternate to stretch and extend the legs, walking the dog or pedaling the feet a few times. Keep the breath steady in and out through the nose. And warming the feet at the same time. And then let's breathe in and lower the knees down. And tip back into child pose. Resting the arms. If your arms and wrists are quite tired, you could try a different arm position. One suggestion would be to bring the hands and arms by the side of the legs so that the backs of the hands are on the floor, the palms are relaxed, the fingers are relaxed, and then let the shoulders shrug around forward for a few breaths here, softening down. Feel the breath move into the back of the body, around the lower ribs and the waist. Try and relax your wrists here and let the fingers release, so the fingers curling. Okay, we are going to come back up onto the hands and knees initially. Again, you might want a bit of padding under the knees this time. We are going to stay on the knees this time. So instead of tabletop, reach beyond your shoulder level and reach the hands out in front. Depending on how confident you feel here and how it feels for you, try not to move your hips so your hips stay over your knees. Arms as straight as you can make them. Keep the forearms lifting, but then allowing the chest to lower towards the mat, but without necessarily arching your back. And I say necessarily, some of you will be very tempted to have an archy back, which is not a bad thing. It's just not always the focus. I tend to do this version of puppy pose because it's pretty good for the shoulders, although it's quite intense. So widening across the shoulders. Keep the shoulders apart from each other and the arms as straight as you can. I guess if you're not feeling as energized, you might be less inclined to do this posture, but it is just brief. It's a short moment in time. Taking another breath in and then breathing out. Actually, what you're going to do now is bring the forearms to the floor and bring your chest forward so the hips lower down onto the mat. And if you're not quite in position, just check your shoulders are underneath your no, your elbows are underneath your shoulders. So you might just need to shuffle your elbows forward. We're going to come into Sphinx Pose, which is a fairly, not exactly passive, but it could be classed as a passive back bend in the sense that your legs are fairly relaxed. There's the lift of the spine without the effort of the arms having to do that. But what you can do here is energize this sensation by pressing your elbows down and towards the pelvis. So sort of pushing your elbows down and towards your pelvis. At the same time, push the pelvis down, and as if you could pull the pelvis to the elbows. And you get this stretch along the front body, lift the chin a little bit. If you want to emphasize that stretch from the pelvis to the chin. Okay, so steady out your breath as we hold Sphinx posture. And then releasing slightly. So you're not coming all the way to the floor with the chest, but you're going to keep the weight on your elbows, forearms. Tuck the toes underneath. Lift your knees. And then when you're ready, you're going to lift up into a forearm plank. Okay, so yes, sneaking in a little bit of a tricky, more challenging posture here, but see how you feel to lift the hips off the floor. The toes are tucked under, and try to create this straight line from your shoulders to your heels. So the legs are straight and we're not pitching the hips up or down. If you can, you're trying to lengthen in your lower back area and widen and puff up the space between the shoulder blades. Draw the belly button in. Steady breaths. You're like, this is not what I signed up for. 2 more breaths. And then lower down so you can rest back on the floor with your legs and hips, and then bringing the forearms forward. Maybe rest the head. And then as you bend your knees, lift the feet and gentle sway side to side as you gently move around your lower back. So basically the legs moving, but what you're aiming to try and do here is get a bit more movement around the pelvis. So you might feel the pelvis lifting off one side and then alternating to lift off the other side. And again, you can do more or less of this kind of thing. It's quite easy to convince yourself you're not doing too much, but at the same time you can get the spine moving, waking up. Okay, we're going to come back onto the hands and knees. So take your time to push up, hands and knees. We're going to take another downward dog. So check again, knees hip width, your feet hip width, and the hands are shoulder width apart. Breathing in, tuck the toes, breathing out, lifting the hips, pressing the chest back, hips going higher. Legs extending a little bit more if you're feeling a little bit more awake in the legs, but not forcing that action to happen. Doesn't have to happen. Might never happen. Steady breaths. Two more breaths in through the nose. 2 more breaths out through the nose. As you breathe in again, bring the shoulders over your wrists. So yes, sneaky posture coming in here. That's a little bit more challenging. Again, high plank position. Try to find that same line between your shoulders and heels. Legs straight. Firm up the buttocks. Press into the floor. Widen between the shoulder blades and puff up between the shoulder blades. Again, check for any pitching. Make sure your hips are not up high and they're not dropping low. Right in the middle. Pull the belly button into the spine, breathing steadily in and out through the nose. If you need to stop here, I'm going to hold it for a few more breaths, but if you need to stop, we're actually going to come down onto the floor again, onto the belly. So take your time to gradually move down if you need. Otherwise, if you're still with me, in and out through the nose. One more breath in. And breathing out slowly, so we'll all end up on the floor eventually. Back down on the front of the body. So bringing the forearms forward again, turn the head to your left, so the right side of the face resting comfortably on your hands or arms. And now we're going to bring the left knee to the side. Hope you can see what's going on here. Got the left knee at the height of the left hip and the left toes turned out to the side. So the left inner thigh and groin gets a little bit of stretch, but once you've got your leg out to the side, turning the chest as close towards parallel to your mat again. So settling back down in the upper body, but passive around the lower body. Allowing the breath to slow down. Or if you wanted to, you could stay here for longer. You could stay here for sort of 3 minutes or so. If you find that this is quite a nice releasing stretch without too much effort, or you can begin to move on to the second side, like I'm going to. So, of course, when you move to the second side, you're bringing your right knee wide and you're turning the head to the right as well. So we're just going to keep things even around the neck to alternate the position of the head. Comfortable around the right knee and the right toes turning out to the side. Upper body in line or facing the floor. What is passive once you get yourself in position so you can rest here? And again, you could stay here for longer. You could pause the video. We're actually going to release otherwise. Oh, that right leg. And what I'd like you to do is just turn over in place. So you're going to lay on your back. Have the feet flat to the floor and knees bent, of course, to do that. And then you're going to take the left ankle cross onto your right knee, base of your right thigh, and have your left knee moving wide and away from your face. You could even encourage that by pressing with the left hand into the left leg or left thigh. Just to open out the hip, get a little bit more space, and to feel like you're not compacted. When we do a lot of sitting or standing or not moving, the joints, all our joints, but very noticeable around the hips, can just feel a bit sticky, and just creating a little bit of space feels useful. It's to feel a little bit more energized around the pelvis. And from this position, we're going to keep the legs the same, but allow both legs to now drop over to the right side. So you might find, or you might find that you can't, allow the left foot to come flat to the floor. And if that doesn't happen, that doesn't matter. Now, you could place something underneath the left foot if it's useful, but at the same time, it doesn't matter if the foot's hovering off the mat or floor here. Okay, let's reach the arms wide. Turn the palms to the sky. Relax the wrists and the shoulders towards the mat. Try to keep that left shin almost vertical, as if you could stand up the lower leg. Your kneecap pointing towards the sky. Let's take another 3 breaths here. And gradually releasing. So bring yourself to center. And we'll recross with the right ankle at the base of the left thigh. Of course, the same position to prepare. Right hand pressing into your right thigh away from the face. And again, just seeing how the hips feel. Gradually releasing the legs over to the left side. And releasing that right arm wide, arms wide, palms turned to the sky. And try to stand your right shin upright, so the right knee towards the sky as well. We're passive, but the sensation is pretty active, which is a really good way to get the body to move without the mental effort to get there. Oh, there's less mental effort to get there. And the practice will guide you. So if you feel, this is quite tiring for you, you can regress it. You can hold the postures for less time. You could warm the hips, but without going into this deeper stretch. And certainly remembering that you can allow the yoga practice to meet you where you are. And if that's not where you were in March or February, maybe your motivation in January has dropped off, that's okay. The practice will meet you and offer what you need at this point. Let's gently release the legs again, bring the legs back to center, curl the knees in, and then rolling over to one side, bring yourself up. We're actually going to stand. And although we're towards the very end of this particular practice, we're going to finish with an energizing breathing technique. You are very welcome to take some rest after this, as you normally would, and however you prefer. So if you like to take some rest in Shavasana, which is typical and much needed for most of us as well, then you're welcome to do that. And the other thing you could do is sit and take a few moments to meditate and just sort of feel how the energy is in your body now that you've done some movement. And this breathing technique is a movement combined with the breathing. It is a breath of joy. A couple of cautions: if you have lower back issues, then definitely bend your knees. If it's severe lower back issues, probably don't do this at all. If you have high blood pressure or glaucoma, then consider that this might not be the best technique for you. So have a look, you can see, and then decide if you want to join in. Feet hip width apart, maybe slightly wider. Spread your toes, create a stable foundation. You want to bend your knees quite a lot in this movement. I'm going to show you from the side and from the front. The problem is you can't actually see my legs very well in these trousers, but you'll get the gist that I'm bending the knees as I'm moving around. You'll need to have some space actually to make sure that you don't hit your arms into any walls or any obstacles around the mat. We breathe in three sort of short bursts of breath in the one inhalation. So we breathe in 3 times, like 3 sniffs. That's the word I was looking for. And then we breathe out through the mouth. Okay, so 3 breaths, all on top of 3 sniffs on top of each other in the one breath. So inhale. Keep going. You can make this faster if you want to. You can use more energy with the movement, or you can make the movement more gentle, depending on your body's needs, right? You don't have to do the fancy version if this is not good for your legs, or it feels bad in your back. Make it gentler and smaller. One more. Rising all the way up. Come to rise and stand, steady yourself out. Maybe close the eyes if you're feeling balanced enough to do so. Allowing the breath to slow down. Allowing the breath to move back to your nose. Thank you for your practice. Namaste.